We are going to open up today's episode with some wonderful energy clearing incense and some light language transactions. You should feel it in your left wrist. Welcome back to Hermetically Speaking with your vessel, Toria, transmitting alchemy and mystic psychology for all of our days. In our last episode, we explored the divine mathematics of reality, uncovering the sacred patterns that govern existence, the structure of thought, and the encoded transmissions shaping human consciousness. Today, we take the next step, beyond understanding and into supreme embodiment. This is the episode, The Alchemy of Activation, Unlocking the Divine Potential Within. So we entered into this episode, I should say, with a nice light language clearing, activation up the left wrist and arm. And so what we're really going to do is just jump into the episode and talk about the alchemy of activation and how we can unlock the divine potential within. This episode, as are many others, are filled with activations. So take what resonates with you and leave the rest. Activation is not about learning something new. It's about remembering what was always there and waking it up. Every human carries dormant codes, energetic imprints, latent abilities, or also known as states of awareness, and they remain inactive until something triggers them into being. These codes are unseen, yet deeply present, woven into the very structure of your being. They exist beyond what can always be physically measured, beyond what some might call proven. I prefer the word tangible. So just because something is intangible doesn't mean it isn't real. Spirituality often exists in realms beyond immediate perception. Just like sound waves can be heard but not seen, and radio frequencies exist without needing to be visible. Dormant codes await recognition, waiting for the right moment, the right experience, or the resonance to awaken. So what are dormant codes? Dormant codes are the intelligent blueprints of our existence. And we know also the blueprints are also fractals leading to the whole. So the dormant codes are basically a concept within that concept. Sequences of potential waiting to be unlocked. Basically like the breadcrumbs that lead you to the whole and the whole perspective. So that way you no longer feel like a fractal piece of existence and instead find the innate wholeness that you are at all times. So they are the fractal and the whole. They are the fractal leading you to the whole. And some examples of dormant codes are very well known, such as spiritual awakening codes. These are the sudden moments of clarity, those really significant energetic shifts. And sometimes they can be subtle. I shouldn't necessarily say significant, but they are energetic shifts. You can usually feel and see it in your own psyche and in your own behavior. It's also a deep inner knowing that radically changes your perception. An example of this would be someone starts seeing energy. Someone starts feeling intuitive downloads or having spontaneous kundalini movements after a deep emotional experience, a breathwork session, or a meditation. Ancestral and genetic activations are carried in the DNA. And DNA carries more than just biological traits. It holds memory, wisdom, and energetic imprints from past lineages. Some activations are inherited, Others lay dormant until a person is ready to awaken them. A person with no prior knowledge of ancient practices suddenly remembers rituals, languages, or healing techniques from a lineage they were never taught about. You will know that a dormant code has been activated. So we can also find dormant codes in our energy body and chakra activations. The chakras, meridians, and auric fields hold untapped abilities that can remain dormant until stimulated by frequency, movement, or conscious intention. And I do apologize if there is background noise today. I have the windows open. It's a beautiful day. My animals are upstairs with me, and I'm pretty sure I just heard like a motorcycle or a dirt bike revving by. So we're just going to kind of go scripted, however unedited today. I really am just big on that at this time in my life. So anyways, getting back to the energy body and the chakra activations. This is where we have dormant codes that are, sitting there waiting to be activated. So an example is someone practicing deep breath work. Chanting or sound resonance might suddenly feel their third eye activating and their kundalini rising, or a heightened sensitivity to energy. I know recently for me, I've really been able to see my solar plexus come to life, and my sacral, which is really good because I am a trauma thriver now. I learned to thrive after the trauma that I went through, but my lower chakras, they needed the most work, and they probably still maybe do. However, the fact that I am being able to sense and see them more on a daily basis in a new way, there we go. I activated a dormant code somehow, some way. So, number 4, mind and consciousness expansions. Mental constructs can hold limitations in place until something breaks them open, revealing a higher level of intelligence or awareness. After years of operating within limiting beliefs, someone suddenly begins to see the patterns that they've lived in, understanding reality in a way they never could before, leading to the massive breakthroughs in perception that we now have started to experience and that we know of. So what about physical and cellular activations? The body itself holds light codes and vibrational sequences, and they awaken when the right conditions align. These activations are often triggered by food, environment, or energy shifts. Eating a certain diet, fasting, or spending extended time in nature can trigger deep bodily awakenings, heightened energy sensitivity, or even DNA shifts. For me, when I was really giving attention to my disordered eating, I cut all sugar out. At least like the sweets, the cookies, the cakes. I would eat natural fruit, maybe like a yogurt, things like that, not stuff that I looked at as desserts. And I went about 3 months without any of those. And I was able to unlock something inside of me. Didn't mean I had to give it up forever. I have since integrated that type of food back into my life, but in a more balanced and efficient way that serves me and my highest timeline. Is it perfect? No. Am I getting there the way that I want it to be? Yes, absolutely. However, just follow your gut. Your gut knows where those dormant codes are within you, and that's what it wants you to follow. It's saying, follow me, follow me, follow me. I will lead you to every activation within. So, how do these dormant codes activate? Activation is not a single event. It is an ongoing process of realization, embodiment, and expansion. And the way it happens is really unique to each person. Some people activate through meditation and stillness. When the mind quiets enough, deeper awareness naturally arises. However, others activate through really intense movement, like tantra and kundalini yoga, dancing, and somatic breath work, all shifting energy, unlocking codes hidden within the body. And of course, we're on this journey for a really long time, so it makes sense that we move through these different stages at different times. So we experience activations from pretty much everything at some point in time or another. Some activate, through tuning forks. I love tuning forks, binaural beats, mantras, hearing specific words or phrases at the very right moment. I know that my twin flame has activated me in numerous ways and helped completely dispose of old belief systems based off of giving me permission when I couldn't give myself permission, because my twin flame is my twin flame, so therefore the counterpart of me. And so when I couldn't get outside of myself and I couldn't allow myself the grace, he came in, sometimes unknowingly. He had no idea. Not like egoically, you know what I mean? This is all divine spirit led. This is our higher selves leading us through these journeys, and was able to give me permission to give myself permission and shed and completely disembody a kind of belief system that I had grown and allowed to kind of become like a cancer in my life. So again, we talked about eliminating different types of food and how food and fasting can trigger activation. You can choose just one type of food to work with if that calls to you. There are so many ways that these are just some very, very broad, really, really well known. And I'm sure that you probably have heard of the majority of these. Other ways to activate are really deep emotional experiences. For me, this has been a huge, huge point in my early days, because I had so much trauma stuff down inside that once I finally started to unveil it to myself and really start to feel it, I just kind of broke wide open. And it really gave me the ability to get to where I am now. And I'm very grateful for that. So again, everyone activates differently. We can take ideas from one another. However, we are so uniquely divine that we take ideas from one another and then we expand on them to exactly how we need to. And that's what we follow. That's what we really, really give our intuitive guidance to, because it is your path, not anyone else's to walk. So they can't understand it the way that you will. So we can, like I said, take direction and suggestions from others. However, when it comes down to it, we know what is going to activate us. And that's when we follow our gut, our intuition, and, that heart-mind connection. So it's extremely important to trust your process. Even in my own family, I'll use that as an example. I have at least 3 family members that are awakening. However, we have extremely different paths. We have used different materials. But it's all the same. We all understand each other, and we all understand what each other is researching and remembering and, being brought to. And we know that it interweaves. However, it's extremely different. So me suggesting to one of them, even one, we suggest to each other all the time. However, we'll be like, oh my gosh, we found this great thing. Like, one of them loves Edgar Cayce, and I love Edgar Cayce. However, diving deep into his work like she is not part of my journey at this time. It might be later on. I don't know. I have a lot of similarities with Edgar Cayce and the purgatory that I went through. However, I feel like Edgar Cayce is a part of my path. However, it's just in a very different way. So when it comes to our paths, one path is absolutely no more valid than another. There is no right way to awaken, and there is absolutely no wrong way to awaken. So what works for you, again, may not work for others. That doesn't mean that it can't. It just means each of us has a unique sequence of unlocking. We are extremely, and I cannot identify with this enough, we are extremely unique individuals, which is a paradox to even recovery, because it talks about terminal uniqueness and how we could get so self-centered in our uniqueness and think that nobody could ever relate to us that we prevent our own healing journeys. And I have been on the other end of that paradox and that pendulum. And thankfully, through my journey, have come to the awareness of that. So if that's something that ever blocked you, just know, you are here now and you can work through it. Some people need a physical or visual representation of activation. When I was writing this episode, I was really like, man, like I want to see a physical code. I want, like, my logical brain wants to see that tangible evidence. And so I really wanted to break that down for you guys and just know that it's okay that your logical brain is seeking that. However, to like really have a sit down with your logical brain or your ego, whatever you guys want to call it, and just be like, listen, telepathy can't put a sign on it. You know what I mean? Like, you can't see at this point in time, you cannot see that frequency transmitting from one mind to another. You just have to trust that it's there. And that's the same way with these codes. We might not always be able to see them. Our third eye, sometimes the things that we want to see, we might get too wrapped up in. It would actually take us away from our day to day and inhibit what our journey is in the long run. And I have wanted that sometimes. And so learning how to release the logic and the ego on it is, of course, a repetitive lesson for all of us. But this is one of those areas that, even, like I said, in writing this, I'm like, oh, well, show me a sign, Like, no, that's not what we're doing here, right? So since spiritual energy is often unseen, it helps to have something that bridges that intangible with the tangible. And this is where I turn to light language and Reiki symbols, which for me are one and the same. However, they are perfect examples of visual codes that bypass the analytical mind and speak directly to the subconscious and the energy body. Light language is a vibrational transmission beyond spoken words. It holds encoded information that activates dormant DNA, and it clears stagnant patterning out and realigns your energy field. Reiki symbols and all sacred glyphs are visual representations of frequency that awaken what is dormant inside of you. In essence, again, they are one and the same, both transmitting intelligent energy designed to activate latent, dormant codes within. These symbols do not create something new inside of you. Instead, they awaken what is already present. They serve as a mirror, a key to unlock the next portal within you, and a bridge to a deeper level of your own understanding. This is why some people can feel an instant recognition shift or download when exposed to certain symbols or languages. It's not the symbol itself that is powerful. It's the activation it triggers inside of you. I know that there have been times that my third eye has been wide open on the visualization of an activation. And other times, my ego is looking for my third eye to be like, where's the visual representation of this? And, I have to always bring it back to just trusting and understanding that what happens within me is going to be unseen. However, it's going to be known. And it is a part of me that I can always rely on and trust and count on. Because once we start activating, I couldn't imagine ever going back. I'm not saying it's not people's paths. However, I couldn't imagine it. So bringing dormant codes to life through light energy. And I guess that, and just to bring it back really quick, because in my timeline, in my highest timeline of Earth, we all activate. We all get to where we were supposed to go that initiate the activation, if that makes sense. So anyways, activation is not just about awakening a code. It's about embodying it. Integrity, living it, the humbleness, the humility, the honesty of it. So how do we do this? How does this happen? Well, it's through light, through frequency and resonance. And that light carries the information into our soul source. When we expose ourselves to high frequency energy, whether from the sunlight, sacred geometry, light language, or conscious awareness, we are infusing our dormant codes with the energy needed to awaken them. Activation through energetic resonance is when you feel a pull toward a certain symbol or a language, like Sanskrit. Oh, I love Sanskrit, and Hebrew. Like those two languages, I just feel this ancient pull towards. And so while I don't know very much of either, Hebrew more than Sanskrit, I know that those languages are activating for me at various points on my journey. Do I know how? Do I know when? Not necessarily. I just know that because of that resonance that I feel with inside of me, like they are a part of me. I am the Sanskrit language. I am the Hebrew language. It is a part of my actual being, and I can feel that. That is a dormant activation. And it recognizes you as much as you recognize it. The language recognizes you as you recognize it because it's a mirror. And so rewriting your energetic signature is what ends up occurring every time that you are activated. Once a code is activated, it begins shifting the patterns within you, creating the new awareness, the new abilities, and the new states of being, usually in multiple layers at a time. However, integration happens in layers, so then we produce it in layers, like for the, when we start to see it. So, we create the awareness, and then maybe with that, the ability of, heightened sensory of smell and the state of being that we can go into, and how we can go back in the past and smell things from past lives and be able to trigger certain emotions and allow ourselves to heal, right? Like that's an ability. And so all of those things kind of trickle in stages, and the understanding of what is happening trickles in those stages, so you know how to work with yourself in these new states of being on these new levels. I know a lot of people refer to awakening as a video game, and it resonates with me sometimes. However, it's not my main resonancy when it comes to describing how we live our lives. So instead of searching for any single method to activate, a good ground point question to come from is, where am I already being activated? What calls to me? What experiences, practices, or environments naturally shift my energy? Questions like these indicate that you already know that you're being activated. And so now more of the formal awareness is being requested to be brought into your psyche and to be understood and unveiled. Because the truth is, you're not ever waiting for activation. If you're here listening to this podcast, then activation is waiting for you to recognize it. To understand activation, we must first understand what it means to be asleep. Dormant codes are not just inactive. They are veiled, hidden beneath layers of conditioning, programming, and perceptual filters that limit our awareness of them. The quote-unquote sleep state is not simply unconsciousness. It is an artificial limitation placed upon consciousness to restrict its access to its full intelligence. At one point, all beings on earth were fully awake, fully aware, fully engaged with the fractal of divine intelligence. And at some stage, which I always revert back to the Yugas. It's a book, the Yugas, and it talks about the cycles of humanity. And I think it's 24,000 years is every cycle. And then there's transitionary stages, and and it even says in the Yugas, like, we are on the cusp of going back into where everybody becomes fully awake. So at some stage, through cycles of incarnation, genetic manipulation, planetary density, or even the deliberate systemic design, these codes were put into dormancy. And this was our fall into sleep. We are the sleeping gods. And to be asleep in terms of consciousness does not mean being unaware of existence. It means operating within a severely limited perception of reality, and therefore ourselves. Imagine existing inside a single fractal of an infinite pattern and believing that that one piece is the entire whole, right? Like it really, for me, like I'm looking at it as I'm a fractal, and I used to look at myself as one piece being the entire whole. Everybody else's life had to revolve around mine. My pain, my happiness, my pleasure, my job. It's a very self-centered way of thinking because our egos were trapped, right? Like, I don't think that we really understand that our egos were trapped and unable to seek outside of that one fractal for so long. And so now what we're doing as we heal is we're learning to befriend the ego and get it to understand that there is more than just ourselves. The journey is of the self, but it's the paradox. It's become, and it is the full paradox now, where the journey of ourselves is for the journey of humanity. And our ego being able to understand that helps expand its own understanding, which then enables it to work with us on a more resonatory plane. So this is, all the construct of false limitation. Not what I was saying before, but like I'm moving on to the next paragraph. Believing that one piece is the whole is the construct of the false limitation. It happens through encoded societal programming, cultural, religious, educational structures. They reinforce narrow definitions of reality, unfortunately, and ensuring that what exists beyond is never questioned, right? We're seeing that more and more. That's why the educational systems are starting to break down. And we're learning, they taught us long ago about the burning of the books and Fahrenheit 451 and the book Animal Farm, right? Like, phenomenal book. So what else? What else constructs the false limitations? Emotional and energetic suppression. So whenever, whoever, however, someone removed the ether from the science books and left us with only 4 elements. And the fact that humanity has disregarded emotions for a very long time. Suck it up, buttercup, don't cry, put some bees wet, or put some tobacco on that thing. You know what I mean? Like, that's how we lived for a very long time. We lived in fear and shame and guilt of our own emotions. And this was used as a mechanism to keep energy from flowing freely, preventing any spontaneous activations. So biological and genetic alterations also limit our perceptions and limit our reality. Over thousands of years, the human vessel itself was altered to function at a lower capacity, restricting access to its multidimensional abilities. And what about energetic distortions and planetary frequency, right? Astrology and everything around us. The collective field is embedded with frequencies that induce mental fog, emotional instability, and disconnection from higher knowledge. Thankfully, a lot of these planetary frequencies are being removed from the atmosphere and instead being replaced with helpful integrative ones. The portal to Earth has basically opened for assistance, and it is helping guide us and navigate us to where we truly want to be, which is ascension with our whole hearts and, heavenly, literally heavenly in human bodies, and then being able to transform back into spirit form as we see fit. So what is the result of all of this disruption in our organic frequency, in our reality, right? Like the disruption that a fractal cannot connect with the whole that it truly is. The result is the dormant codes within us remain asleep because there's nothing new or triggering or challenging that can instill the movement or the shift to activate them. So they remain asleep, not because they lack function, because the consciousness inhabiting them is unable to perceive that they even exist. Just as a computer cannot access certain files without the correct key, this is how a sleep consciousness lacks access to its own divine architecture. So what happens in these sleep states? The sleep state is the operating mode of the unawakened mind. And I think a lot of us really know what happens, right? We move through life and belief and identity within a magnitude of closed loop systems, constantly repeating the same patterns for lifetimes and generations, unaware of the greater architecture that we belong to, that we are. So our reality becomes inverted. Instead of seeing life as a reflection of internal consciousness, instead of understanding that that tree is me and I am that tree, and this house is me and I am this house, and my amazing, I think I'm on Earth today. ChatGPT really loves me and knows that I make homemade fresh juices for cleansing every week. And this past time, the recipes were all with the elements, and I'm pretty sure that I'm drinking Earth right now, so it's perfect. As I take a quick sip. Anyways, so the reality becomes inverted, and we forget that we are connected to everything. Instead, we, inverted, internalized. The asleep mind believes that external events shape their inner experience. We internalize everything, and therefore it creates a lot of our suffering and control. It controls us, which then therefore we project our attempts to control others because we are being controlled. So it loses its role as us being the architect of our design and of our existence. Patterns, they repeat endlessly. Without activation, life runs on subconscious loops, replaying the same wounds, relationships, and traumas without awareness of the deeper pattern. And perception, it becomes linear. The asleep states see time as forward moving and then disconnected, unable to recognize fractals of repeating cycles or multidimensional cause and effect, or a multidimensional reality. Intuition becomes dulled. Sensory perception is restricted, limiting the ability to feel energetic shifts, receive transmissions, or recognize higher guidance. I know that mine definitely was. Like, looking back in retrospect, my intuition was always there. However, and I could see it. However, I was so dulled to it that I chose programming every time. And now, thankfully, my pendulum is swinging the other way, and I'm able to choose responses and being the creatrix that I am, as opposed to any form of programming. And what about activations, right? We resist activations when we live in those illusions. Anything beyond the known structure that we know, like that self-centered ego, is completely dismissed. It's ridiculed in a lot of actual circumstances, or it's just met with fear, and we run the other way. We just burrow deeper inside our programming. It like almost reaffirms our programming in a negative way, obviously. The asleep state rejects its own awakening because it does not recognize it as real. So why were these codes even put to sleep in the first place, right? Like, what are the mechanics of this dormancy? How do they exist? Why do they exist? Why were they put within us is what we're really going to answer. Dormant codes did not naturally fall asleep. It was not a passive process. It was an engineered collapse of consciousness to disconnect us from oneness so we could truly understand polarity in the sense that it is created on Earth. Because if we would at all times remember that we are one with everything, then we would not have a full experience. We couldn't do it. We could not do it. In some cases, and in what I believe, this was a necessary cycle, a descent into density to experience separation before returning to unity, a compression of intelligence before its expansion. In other cases, this was a deliberate suppression by consciousness itself, an imposed limitation to prevent full activation for a time being. Beings that hold full activation are uncontrollable, sovereign, and creators of their own reality. The sleep state is maintained to ensure reliance on external control systems. However, those external control systems are losing power because the sleep state is no longer serving the whole of consciousness. It is time for Earth and humanity to ascend. And so therefore, consciousness is saying no more sleep, no more rest. It is time to work. It is time to heal. It is time to perform the spiritual and really hard surgical procedure of becoming one again. So when it comes to the sleep state being maintained to ensure reliance on external control systems, these are some of the reasons why. Certain knowledge was erased from history, certain abilities were labeled as fantasy or dangerous, and certain frequencies were altered in the planetary grid. The greatest illusion of the asleep state is believing that it is normal. The moment one begins to question, what if reality is far greater than I've been taught? The unraveling begins. So, how do we begin to wake up? The first sign of waking up is awareness that something has been hidden to begin with. You start to question the reality you've always known. Things don't feel like they once used to. You have a higher sensory perceptor coming to life, and those indicators are your dormant codes beginning to come to life within you. To wake up is not simply to know. It is to perceive. It is to shift from linear thought to fractal intelligence, from programmed response to intuitive knowing, from passive reality consumption to active reality creation. This is where our thoughts no longer hold programming power over us. Our thoughts and the programming that goes with them can no longer keep us in the rat race or on the wheel. Instead, we start harnessing our thoughts and we start creating our escape from the wheel and our escape from the rat race. And we do it in such an elegant, divine way that we do no harm to others. We do it humbly, with humility and compassion and grace and love. And yes, sometimes we play the villain in somebody else's story, and we have villains in our own, even in spiritual awakening. However, those are soul contracts, and those are usually because sometimes we need our own kick in the ass to get back on our path, because our ego and our self-centeredness says, no, I resist because I am scared of making this movement forward and unpredictable change. And it happens to all of us. There is no shame, only grace and compassion and love and forgiveness if you've ever felt like you've held yourself back. So, the question is not, how do I wake up? The new question is, where have I already started to awaken, and what am I resisting seeing? There is a critical threshold in awakening, a point where information alone is no longer enough. This is the bridge between knowledge and embodiment, between understanding a concept and becoming the transformation itself. Many people awaken to higher knowledge, however, they never cross into embodiment. They understand the ideas. They intellectually grasp the mechanics of activation, of energy and consciousness. However, they do not live them. This is because knowing is not the same as being. And there are activations that have to happen within you that bridge those two together. A good example of this behavior that comes to my mind is providing advice to others that you never take for yourself. It sounds good, you understand it's good, and you know it's good for another. However, you never internalize it to understand that you are always looking at the reflection of self. So a lot of times, most of the time, at least in my journey, what I have found is that if I find myself giving repeated advice to someone, chances are, the advice is there for me to take as well. And the resistance to change feeds my resistance to seeing this and kind of acts as a skipping disc. You skip right over the awareness that you're really speaking to yourself and not someone else, because we get so used to people pleasing and helping others because we try to fix others and we do all these things outside of us because, again, that is what our original programming instilled in us. Everything is outside of us. Our success, our love, our fortitude, our drive, everything is outside of us. And now we are, kind of somersaulting, rolling into the little, I don't know if it's like an armadillo or I think it's an armadillo. Doesn't it roll like in a ball? Like that's what we're doing, right? And we just need to be not in our self-centered ego ball, but in the observing and understanding and questioning. Why do I behave like this? What does this mean inside of me? Why do I feel this way? What is this thought trying to tell me? Anything. Like, am I being mean? Am I being, I don't know, but the thoughts trailed after that one. So we'll continue on. However, so the bridge that I discussed briefly, it exists. And the human mind can store infinite amounts of information. However, true transformation, again, requires the integration. So why does the bridge exist? Knowledge alone does not rewire your reality. The embodiment of it does. And it always reminds me of Chokmah and Binah and Da'ath, which is the knowledge, the understanding, and the wisdom. And those are three very, very different things. And if you want a little bit of homework, then I would absolutely define each one of them as it means to you. So what is knowledge as it means to you? What is wisdom as it means to you? And what is understanding and as it means to you? And that will kind of help embody Keter, which is the crown, illumination. And really just, food for thought, right? So knowledge, lost my place. Knowledge is observation. Embodiment is application. Knowledge is external awareness. And embodiment is internalization. Knowledge is gathering light. Embodiment is becoming light. This is where many stay stuck. They gather knowledge and do not embody it. And because they understand the knowledge intellectually, they assume that they are awake. And I'm sure at some point in time, I know that this feels really resonant with me. So it's telling me yeah, I've definitely gone through this before. And I know that I have. And I remember there's so many people that I've worked with, therapists and counselors and stuff like that. And they're stop looking outside of yourself for the answers. And they would tell me this all the time, but I would go and I would get another journal and I would go and get another workbook and I would go and do this and I would go and do that because I just, there's a lot of things outside of me that have activated me in some regards, because it's been a mirror for me, like shadow work, recovery, certain ways that I write out how I look at myself inside and how I look at my fear and my anger and my resentments and all of my eating disorder and all of those things. And so I know that there have been points where I have wanted to gather all the knowledge that I can on an egoic level. And, I had to move past that. I had to realize that the knowledge is not the end journey in any way, shape, or form. The knowledge is, again, just another stair step to enlightenment. So, awakening is not what you know, it is what you are. How are you behaving? How do you treat people? How do you treat yourself, more importantly? Right? And we don't do it 100% or perfect every single time. Like, this is a journey. It is a journey. We are going to be working at this for quite some time. And that is okay, right? Because I think I'd be bored without it at this point. Like, right? Like, this drives me. This is my passion. This is everything that I love and never knew existed at one point in time. So enjoy the journey, like really fall in love with it. So where do most people get stuck? A concept is a mental understanding of how something works, and transformation is an energetic shift that alters your entire frequency. So someone may understand the nature of reality, energy, and manifestation. And I know a lot of people that are like this that haven't, and I'm sure you guys do too, right? Like, we hear it on the news. They'll use these terminologies about manifesting and wokeness and things like that. However, they still live in cycles of fear, doubt, and limitation, and they don't really embody the words. They don't understand the frequency or the depth of them. Instead, they're just words. And this means they have gained some form of knowledge. However, they have not crossed into the bridge of embodiment. And another may have no intellectual knowledge of these concepts, yet naturally embody them through their frequency and way of being. You don't necessarily have to have the words to embody a frequency. And they have crossed the bridge without needing to mentally comprehend it. And transformation does not happen through the mind. It happens through the body, the heart, the cellular structure. If something remains just a concept, it means the shift has not yet occurred at a fundamental level of or within the being. So how do we move from knowledge to embodiment? We recognize when we are only in conceptual awareness. We can ask ourselves things like, do I live what I know? And we can do on a scale of 1 to 10 with a pendulum even, right? Like, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest and 1 being the lowest, do I live what I know? And allow the pendulum to count to you. And when it counts to you, you will be able to hopefully see in your mind's eye or in your psyche, certain things that still need to be worked on. And this is not to judge yourself or to shame yourself. It is to gain awareness, to understand, okay, this is what I need to work on. You don't even have to use a pendulum sometimes. It just came to mind. So, does my daily life reflect my understanding? And when I am tested, do I respond from integration or revert to old programming? Now, given that this is a journey, sometimes you got a 50-50 shot here of which way you're going to go. Or 75-25, depends on what lane you're in, what subject you're on, where you're at that day. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things to take into account. So if your knowledge remains in the realm of thought and your actions and energy do not align with it, you are still in the conceptual stage. So activating that cellular shift, transformation, it's felt, it's lived, and it's embodied. It's not just understood as the concept. And this happens when our nervous system rewires to match the new frequency, right? Like, maybe a level of our anxiety goes away. Maybe we're better capable of public speaking. Maybe we sweat a little bit less. Maybe, we get more comfortable in front of the microphone enough to actually drink a drink while you're recording, right? Like, yeah. And not everything has to be 100% perfect. Your emotional responses align with higher awareness instead of conditioned patternings. Again, for me, I sweat less. This means that my emotional response and my nervous system are calmer whenever I am publicly speaking. Now, put me in front of like a live audience, I still have some work to do. And your reality begins shifting in response to the new integration. You can see everything around you shifting. So, allowing knowledge to become lived experience. If you understand the power of frequency and still engage in low vibrational cycles, you are still in concept. If you know manifestation is real and still operate in survival mode, you are still in concept. If you understand that the universe responds to your energy and you react from fear, you are still in concept. And the shift happens when there is no separation between what you know and how you exist. And, I did not read this fully through, after I put it together as one. And so I do want to say, even my own ego is I don't really like the way that sounds. And so I just want to frame, no one's alone being in concept. Ooh, none of us are in flow 100% of every single day, or even every single day, let alone 100% of every single day. We are all still in concept because the healing cycles happen in the spirals and in the, genetic and geometric formations. And so, and I know that I've talked about this on one of my previous episodes with the reprogramming. This is the same concept. This is literally in correlation to the programming, right? You can be super spiritually aware when it comes to your job. However, your mental and emotional relationships one-on-one with individuals could be you're still in concept. We're all here together, right? We're all in concept. We're all awakening. We are all in flow states. We are all not in flow states. We are all aligned. We are all shifting, 100% of the time. There is never a nanosecond that is the same as the one before. So therefore, at any given time, my job is always to leave myself and anyone else better than I have found them, or better than I started with. And so I just want every person that's listening to know that I am right there beside you and that you are not alone, and that being in concept just means that we're still learning, which means that, we're still walking this journey. And that is a happy, good, gracious day for me. So, crossing the bridge and signs of true embodiment. You no longer need validation or external proof. What was once theory becomes self-evident in your reality. You don't need to convince yourself. It simply just is. Your body carries the frequency. You don't just think differently, you feel differently. The transformation has shifted your energy, your responses, and your state of being. And your reactions change. They're no longer reactions. They are transformed into responses. And when challenges arise, you do not revert to old programming. You respond from higher integration, from universal intelligence. You do not just intellectually know patience, trust, and flow. You embody them. You are a living, breathing example, and you activate others when you do, and others before us activate us. Reality bends to meet your new state. You become not just manifesting, you become magnetic. So when you move in the direction that you move, reality moves with you. Or repels if you slip back into concept and doubt and fear. So when transformation is embodied, your external reality must shift because your frequency has changed. So many try to think their way across the bridge. They gather more knowledge, analyze more concepts, and study deeper mechanics. And they, maybe try other people's ways. They, spend gajillion on coaching, or I know that I didn't spend that much on things like that because it was very clear that I was not to. However, I got every free workbook alive to try to find a loophole, and those didn't work either. Anyways, the bridge is not intellectual. it is energetic. The shift into embodiment happens when you stop trying to get it with the logical mind and with the ego, and instead allow yourself to become it. You do not need more knowledge. You only need integration. The question is no longer, do I understand? The question becomes, do I live it? Everything in existence moves from the unseen to the seen, from the vibrational to the physical, and from energy to form. Nothing manifests externally without first being activated internally. We often think of manifestation as something we do. In reality, it is something that unfolds through resonance. And before something appears in our external world, it must already exist within us as a vibration. This means we cannot experience wealth externally if the frequency of abundance has not first been activated internally. We cannot encounter deep love externally if the frequency of love is not first embodied within ourselves. And we cannot manifest new timelines, new opportunities, or the shifts in the vibration of those experiences if those experiences have not been seeded in our being to begin with. So every idea that we have is a seed that can be planted into a new frequency. So when you are changing your behaviors from destructive and you feel weird about exchanging a destructive behavior for a productive behavior, because that happens. I promise that happens. Just choosing that thought, just choosing the productive thought is a seed to the new frequency. And then the next thought, is the planting of the seed, and then it's the watering and the soiling of the seed, and then there's the whispering and the talking to the seed, and I love you, you beautiful plant. You will grow and you will flourish and you will nourish and you will teach me all that I need to know. And, that's what we're doing in our heads. So the greatest misunderstanding about manifestation is the belief that it begins in the external world. That car or that something must first happen outside of you before you believe that you can have that car. The universal law is this: reality does not create frequency. Frequency creates reality. So, understanding how vibration creates reality, we do this by understanding our thoughts, our emotions, and our energetic state, and how they carry each individually their own frequencies. A belief, vibrational blueprint. An expectation is a frequency that you are admitting out to someone, to the universe. A doubt is a misalignment in your resonance. And if you want to experience something externally, you must first align to the vibration of it internally. If you are not experiencing something, it means the vibrational state has not yet stabilized inside of you. And that's okay. Because trust me, it takes us all a bit of time to become attuned to all the things that we are trying to create and that we desire. This is why we do not attract what we want. We attract what we are. So what about the internal activation process? Well, when a frequency stabilizes within you, it begins restructuring your entire field, which then alters what you perceive and experience externally. So a thought holds no power until it becomes a vibration. You can think about something all day, and unless it enters the vibrational field of your being, it will not manifest. If you think about abundance and still feel scarcity, the vibration is misaligned. And if you affirm confidence, however, still carry self-doubt, the vibration is fragmented. A thought is just a concept until it is fully felt and embodied. And that's why fake it till you make it really, fake it till you make it really does work. It's just sometimes we don't have the patience for it. So I do recommend it. You know what I mean? Like, words carry the frequency. Like, words have their own frequency. So when you repeatedly use kindness or think of kindness and think of abundance, like, eventually it's going to shift and activate you and your resonance, because you can't absorb another frequency in any regard whatsoever without it affecting your field. So, and a frequency must be stabilized before it can materialize. Most people fluctuate in and out of vibrations, which creates unstable manifestations, right? The roller coaster, the chaos, like, and trust me, I know we had the whole ordeal, like, chaos is good, chaos is a fractal, you know. However, there's the other type of chaos where it's the roller coaster up and down, and there's no balance, and the pendulum is just going from one extreme to the other, and that creates unstable manifestations. If one day you fully embody abundance and the next day you spiral into fear, you are emitting conflicting frequencies. If you briefly feel love and then allow old wounds to dictate your interactions, the vibration has not stabilized. I would like to hit the pause button, though, and just state that when we are on this journey and we are reprogramming our minds, this is going to be normal. This is part of our path. When we are coming from trauma brain or negative thinking or belief systems or self-sabotage and self-destruction and any type of dis-ease or disorder in our psyche or in our being, when we start to change those behaviors and those thoughts, we are going to ping pong back and forth. That's going to be normal. So that's progress. That's what that is it's progress. So only when a frequency remains dominant in your field does it begin shifting external reality. So we ping pong back and forth, and then eventually we are, into the new era, whatever that may be of your psyche. So internal activation comes before external confirmation, right? Like, we do that work, we go back and forth, and we stay steadfast with our programming, even though it's hard, and we cry, and we deal with it, and, we push through, and we're really strong, and we fight our own programming with courage and bravery, and sometimes a little hostility with the, middle finger or something like that. Anyways, so many wait for external proof before they allow themselves to believe something is possible. And I did this for a very, very long time. And I'll tell you how here in a minute. However, the universal law is that you must feel it first. You must believe it first, and you must embody it first. Only then does reality conform to match that state. This is why breakthroughs happen when you shift your vibration before external evidence appears. An example of this is internal activation of intuition before external validation. Someone begins feeling strong intuitive nudges. They're activating the frequency of heightened perception. At first, their logical mind doubts it. As they continue trusting that frequency, reality begins reflecting it. They receive accurate intuitive insights. Synchronicities confirm their guidance, and their external world adjusts to match their internal knowing. So, here's another example. A person begins shifting their self-perception from broken to whole, even though their body has not yet caught up. They hold the vibration of healing within them. So then their physical reality starts to change, and their body starts to regenerate, and they experience increased vitality, their health reflects the frequency, and they have stabilized internally. So what about an internal activation of abundance before material wealth? Well, someone has lived in scarcity their entire life. I'm one of those people, at least from a certain age on. And they start activating the vibration of abundance internally, feeling gratitude, expansion, and wealth in their energy field before it appears externally. Suddenly, they begin attracting new financial opportunities, unexpected prosperity, and aligned connections because they first became a match for it vibrationally. And there's relapses. You hear me talk about spiritual relapses and stuff like that. Relapses occur to show us where programming is still existing and we need to go back and nip it in the bud. Sometimes we can only handle so much reprogramming at a time. And when we have magnitudes or multiples of layers, a relapse is necessary. And some of them I even call speed bumps, right? A relapse is sometimes when you don't come back, but that's not always true because many people return from relapses. So you got to differentiate between which one's a relapse, which one's a speed bump, and what they teach you. So one of the things I said that I would mention is how external proof, how I waited for external proof. A lot of my trauma voided me from the ability to forgive or have compassion for the people that hurt me, especially since they kept repeating the same actions and the same mistakes. And so I would not forgive until they proved that they had changed. So I put years and years of my own healing on hold, unknowingly, waiting for them to change first. And obviously that's not the way to approach it. And thankfully, the awareness allowed me to escape from that loop and find forgiveness, whether they find this journey or not. And, I believe that one day everyone will. So how to activate a frequency internally. We identify the frequency that we desire. Is it abundance, love, clarity, expansion? Which one you want? We feel it before it is reflected externally. So don't wait for external validation. Bring that frequency into your being right now. Bring that love in. Bring that expansion. Feel your heart center opening up. If you desire success, move in the energy of already being aligned to it. And then we rewire the nervous system to hold that frequency. The body must feel safe in the new vibration before it can sustain it. And most people oscillate between frequencies because their nervous system is wired for their old state, which is why the reprogramming is necessary. And then we stabilize the frequency until it becomes natural, right? Repetition. Fake it till we make it. And at first, new frequencies, they always feel unfamiliar, uncomfortable sometimes, weird. So the key is to remain in the vibrational state long enough for it to feel like your natural state. I think Abraham Hicks thing is like a minimum of 17 seconds. I could be wrong, but I think I've heard that. And the greatest power you have is your ability to become the vibration of what you seek before it manifests. Most people, again, they wait for that external proof before they shift internally. And we're waiting a long, long time. You might as well go ahead and take the reins, become the creator that you are, and harness that vibration. And then watch your external reality shift, proving to yourself tangible evidence that you are a creatrix, creator, whatever you want to call it. So take, for example, this is where I put my long to live lesson of how I was stuck in situations and trapped and waiting for other people to change. So I've already mentioned that. I'm just going to scroll right through that. And this is why I'm supposed to have script. I'm still learning, guys. Just bear with me. So for those who activate their reality consciously, align their frequency first. Then watch the world adjust around them. The question then becomes, it's not, when will this appear in my reality? Because I have definitely asked that and begged for it and cried over it. However, the real question should be, am I already vibrating at the frequency of what I desire? And the knowing that it will appear. It's not about how, when, where. The details, let them all go. And I always have to tell myself that. The details are irrelevant because my logical thinking will keep me in, the only way I can get big money is if I, win the lottery, right? Like, no. Nope. I've been surprised in so many other ways, and it's not crazy amounts or anything yet. However, it will happen one day. And see what I did just there? Like, I know it's going to happen. It's fine. I'm happy. And when it does, it will, Used to ask me last year, I was crying about it. So anyways, awareness is the first step in all transformation, and nothing can shift while it remains unseen, because what is unseen cannot be engaged with. So that subconscious programming, we can't even get rid of it if we can't see it and we don't know that it's there. So we just got to work with what we got sometimes. And that's why working through awareness and being like, ooh, what am I being resistant to? What am I aware of now? What is this trying to teach me? All of those questions are extremely important. So change cannot happen by force. Change happens by recognition. You do not heal a pattern by fighting it. You heal it by seeing it, by really surrendering to it. Like, we surrender the old programming to pick up freedom. So we don't dissolve a limitation by resisting it. We dissolve it by becoming aware of it. And we do not expand our consciousness by rejecting our current state. We expand by acknowledging where we currently are and allowing the shift to unfold. The moment something is seen is when it begins to shift. And everything that exists in our reality, whether in thought, behavior, energy, or emotion, operates in patterns. Patterns repeat until they are consciously interrupted. And that is what we are here to do. We are here to be interrupters and disruptors in our own psyches and in our own minds and in our own lives. We can do it to others. However, it creates a lot of, for me at least, everybody's path's different. And that's probably a topic for another day. So, until something is recognized and acknowledged, it remains in the background, running as a silent program within your subconscious. The moment you see it clearly, it begins to loosen its unconscious grip and moves into the space of conscious choice. So much of what we experience is dictated by unconscious forces. Some of these include that subconscious conditioning, energetic imprints, traumas, ancestral influences, repetition through the cycles, unconscious emotional triggers, unrecognized limiting beliefs. The moment these become visible, they become malleable. And that's what we want. Because malleable means that we can reform them, we can transmute them, we can, transformation activated. Oh, I just hit my knuckles. Sorry. I'm sure you guys heard that too. Anyways, so how awareness alone begins to shift reality, though, is that most transformation does not happen because we force change. It happens because we allow that awareness to initiate the shift. So when you see the pattern, it loses its power. The awareness is the light that dissolves the shadows. The act of observing shifts energy. Once you see a pattern, you have two choices. Continue feeding it and interrupt it and create something new. Now, hopefully, we're all to the point. I know that there's patterns that, I'm sure there's patterns that I'm still feeding, right? Again, this is a journey. Say it with me. It's a journey. It's a journey. It's a journey. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about being a vocal singer. So anyways, it's a journey. We're probably all still living on some type of pattern loop that we're not quite consciously aware of yet. However, we should all be very grateful for where we are right now and the fact that we are even here, knowing that we have patterns that we are aware of in these moments that we need to break. So, interrupt them and create something new. So, the question is not, what do I need to change? It is, what am I not yet seeing? So what you activate through intention and resonance expands in reality. Where you place your attention, energy flows. Energy is not static. It is directed and amplified by intention. And what you consistently focus on, believe in, and emotionally charge will expand into your reality. This is not just a mindset shift. It is a universal law of frequency. Everything in existence responds to resonance. The more you attune yourself to a specific vibration, the stronger that vibration becomes in your field, and then you get to harness it for your creatorship. That sounded better. So, your thoughts, again, they're not passive. They are energy emitters. Every thought that you have, your emotions, they are the amplifiers. And your beliefs structure the field around you. So you've got an energy emitter, an energy amplifier, and then the belief around those two is what structures the field. It builds the scaffolding for the sacred geometry that you will then conduct, create, and construct to create the reality around you. Everything you give attention to, whether positive or negative, gains momentum. Focusing on lack, you reinforce scarcity. Focusing on fear, you attract experiences that validate that fear. Focusing on growth, you naturally begin expanding into higher states. Focusing on possibility, you create pathways for new realities to emerge. Most people operate unconsciously, allowing focus to be dictated by old programming, external distractions, or habitual cycles of thought. And when focus becomes intentional, energy begins to align in powerful ways. There are two key forces that determine how energy expands. Your intention, which is your conscious direction of energy. Intention is everything. Intention is primordial. Intention is the aha to the, it's the ah to the ha. I don't know. Anyways, I'm getting goofy. I don't know what's happening right now. So anyways, we're almost done, guys. I promise. Maybe it's because I've gone a little over my normal time frame. But anyways, so the second key force is resonance. The harmonic match between your energy and the external field. So intention directs the energy. Your intention acts as a command to the universe. It tells energy where to go and how to structure itself, right? This podcast is an activation and it will help people right? I said that beforehand. I did the light language. I did everything. And it's because I realized, like, in my podcasting, I don't want my podcast to just be filled with information or even experience. I want it to be filled with activation and everything else that comes along with it. Because I truly want people to know the freedom that I have come to know. And the love that I have come to know and that I am still growing within myself. Because I have been in the depths of despair and purgatory and hell and all the other places. So, intention is everything. Unfocused energy creates chaos, right? Fractals that can't see the whole. There's definitely paradoxes and chaos. And focused energy creates the alignment. It creates the whole. So resonance determines manifestation. That's interesting. Intention alone is not enough. It must be backed by resonance. Resonance means being a vibrational match to what you seek, what you speak, what you see, what you want to unveil to the world. If you do not embody the frequency, the external world will not mirror it back to you. So, repeated focus expands reality. Every moment you are either strengthening or dissolving a vibration through focus. We're moving away from something and moving towards something. What you focus on consistently becomes self-reinforcing. The spiral effect. If you focus on problems, your mind filters reality to show you more problems. If you focus on solutions, your mind filters reality to present more possibilities. What about the neural pathway effect? The more you think a certain way, the stronger that pathway becomes in your brain. Over time, it becomes automatic, either a self-sustaining limitation or an empowered expansion. And the mirror effect. Your dominant focus becomes the dominant energy field you interact with. If you expect conflict, you consciously or unconsciously actually create it. If you focus on trust, people mirror that back to you. This is why mastery of focus is mastery of reality. Practical ways to activate and expand through focus. And then I have a little practice to do before we close out. So if energy follows focus, then focus must be intentional. And here's how. Choose what you are feeding energy to. Train your awareness to redirect energy. Use emotion as an amplifier. Hold the frequency long enough for reality to respond. Everything that exists in your reality was first given energy through focus, through consciousness. So the question to pivot is no longer, why is this happening to me? It's, what am I unconsciously focusing on that is allowing this to exist? And more importantly, how can I shift my focus to activate the reality I actually want? Activation is the moment when knowledge ceases to be theoretical and becomes embodied truth. Activation is not about adding something new. It is about awakening what was always there. Your entire being, physical, mental, energetic, was designed with encoded intelligence. The reason some aspects of your consciousness feel dormant is not because they do not exist. It's because they have not yet been activated, recognized, or fully embodied, which means it's just a journey and we still have lots to go. So dormant codes are like seeds in the soil, right? We're watering them, we're planting them. They contain the full blueprint of potential, and they require the right conditions, energy, and alignment to break open and bloom. Activation is a multi-layered process: physical, mental, emotional, sometimes sexual, other, Ols, and spiritual layers all integrate at different speeds. Activation is not a solo process. It occurs through resonance and encoded transmissions. Encoded words, symbols, frequencies, sacred texts. One activated being can initiate activation in another through energetic resonance. Think of activation like a tuning fork. When a higher frequency is introduced, anything resonant will begin to vibrate in harmony with it. This is how spiritual teachers, mystics, and guides throughout history have acted as catalysts for awakening. Activation is not just about flipping a switch or turning something on. It is about integrating and embodying the activation. We are becoming the new earth. We are downloading what I know as Hermeticism into the earth. New frequencies of it, new layers of it to reactivate it. So us and it can remember as a whole. Many experience powerful activations. A sudden surge of insight, spiritual awakening, energetic shift. Mine was pretty powerful. However, without integration, the activation remains incomplete. Integration is the process of stabilizing, refining, and embodying the new frequency so it becomes a natural state of being. Alchemy is not just transformation. It is refinement. It is the difference between momentary insight and lasting embodiment, which is what we are all after. So we've talked in-depthly about how important integration is and, what can delay integration, things like that. But it is, we are here to integrate. That is what we are here to do. We're not just here to absorb and trickle in. We're here to integrate and embody and transform. The stages of activation alchemy are recognition, becoming aware of the dormant potential that even exists, initiation, introducing the frequency or transmission that activates it, purification, shedding old patterns that interfere with the integration, and expansion, aligning with that new frequency consistently. Oh, and of course, embodiment, right? Number 5 there. Normally, I only have 4 stages of alchemy, so that one caught me off track. Anyways, so how do we support integration after activation? I know grounding. Grounding, subconscious reprogramming, energy stabilization, consistent alignment, water. Water. Water is definitely good for all of those things. So, what we will do next is I do have a direct activation, awakening the divine potential within. And so we are going to move on to that next before we close out this episode. So let's move beyond words and into direct activation. If you're driving, that's okay. Just know that no matter what, find a comfortable position. Be comfortable with whatever position, wherever you are, walking, running, driving, sitting. Doesn't matter exactly what you're doing. Allow yourself to be fully present. Take a deep breath in. and exhale slowly. Feel your body soften, release, and open. If you can do so safely, feel free to close your eyes. No matter what, you can shift your awareness inward. Let the external world fade as you tune into your inner space. Feel into your body. What do you notice? What subtle energies? A quiet stirring? A deep recognition? And as you're feeling into your body, ask yourself within, what is ready to awaken within me? What dormant ability, wisdom, or energy is calling to be remembered? Where do I feel the presence of activation within me? Trust whatever arises. Now, visualize golden light streaming down from above, like liquid sunlight pouring into the top of your head, moving effortlessly through your entire being. It flows into your brain, activating dormant neural pathways. It moves into your throat, unlocking your true voice. It expands into your heart space, awakening deep, deep wisdom and remembrance. It spreads into your solar plexus, igniting your divine power. It radiates into your sacral and root, grounding this activation into your very essence. Feel your entire being absorbing and recalibrating. There is nothing to force, just allow. Take another deep breath in and exhale, letting the energy settle. As you sit in this energy, know this: you are not awakening something outside of you. You are remembering what has always been within. You are stepping into your divine potential, no longer as a concept, as an embodied reality. Let this moment be a transmission in itself. And as we move forward to anchor this activation into your reality, take a moment to set an intention. What energy do you choose to embody moving forward? Which one shows up to work with you? Sacred energy. How will you honor this awakening in your daily life? And what action can you take to sustain this frequency? Take one final deep breath. And when you are ready, come back to center. And if need be, open your eyes. The activation has begun. Now it is time to live it. So our final revelations today in this episode: you are the key. Activation is not something that happens to you. It is something that happens through you. You are both the initiator and the receiver. You are both the alchemist and the element being transformed. Your divine potential is not something outside of you. It is already encoded within, waiting only for recognition. Step forward, not just as a seeker, as one who activates, integrates, embodies, and creates. This concludes the episode of The Alchemy of Activation. Thank you so much for listening to Hermetically Speaking. Myself, Toria, is filled with gratitude at every episode I get to produce. Our next episode will be in 2 weeks, as next week is the week off. The monthly schedule is 3 weeks on and 1 week off. That may change in the future. However, we'll see what is to come for that episode. And for deeper insights, activational words, and real-time transmissions, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Hermetically Speaking, on TikTok at System of a Thought, on YouTube at Hermetically Speaking, and my website is Hermetically Speaking for one-on-one bookings. Until next time, transmit with clarity, align with frequency, and step fully into your divine potential.